I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers stay as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Welcome back. We're looking at Lesson 43 from A Course in Miracles today.
Okay.
And it says, God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. It's a pretty profound statement when you think about it.
It really is. You know, when I read that, it made me pause and think about how much I rely on my own limited vision. You know, just my physical eyes and my own opinions and beliefs.
Right. And the lesson goes on to say that perception actually isn't a characteristic of God.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he says that God's realm is knowledge, not perception.
Okay. So how does that work then? How do we perceive the world if God isn't the one perceiving it?
Well, that's where the lesson brings in the idea of the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It says the Holy Spirit is like this bridge between our perception
I see.
and God's knowledge.
So it's not like we're cut off from God's knowledge. We just need that connection with the Holy Spirit to access it.
Exactly. And without that connection, the lesson suggests we'd be stuck in this limited view of the world.
It's making me think about how often I get caught up in my own little bubble.
I know, me too. And that's where the lesson introduces the concept of forgiveness as a way to purify our perception.
Forgiveness. How does that fit in?
Well, it's saying that forgiveness helps us to let go of our own judgments and biases.
Okay.
And by doing that, we can start to see things more clearly, more the way God sees them.
So forgiveness is kind of like cleaning our glasses so we can see better.
That's a great analogy. The lesson also talks about perception as something that was actually created by the Son of God.
Really? I thought perception was just a natural part of being human.
Yeah, it's a bit mind-bending.
Mm-hmm.
But it's saying the perception was created for a purpose that wasn't holy.
Oh, wow. So are we saying our perception is inherently flawed then?
Not exactly. The lesson says that it can be redeemed. And that's by using our perception for forgiveness.
Ah, okay. So we take this tool that was maybe misused and use it for a higher purpose. Yeah.
And by forgiving others, we're actually forgiving ourselves and reconnecting with that unity with God.
It's interesting how it all circles back to that connection with God.
It does, doesn't it? And the lesson makes this powerful statement. You cannot see apart from God because you cannot be apart from God.
So everything we see, everything we experience is happening within him.
Right. And when our vision aligns with the Holy Spirit's purpose, it's like we're seeing with God.
That's amazing. So how do we actually do that? How do we align our vision with the Holy Spirit?
The lesson suggests some very practical steps. It recommends having 3 5-minute practice periods during the day.
5 minutes? That doesn't sound too difficult.
No, it's very doable. And it suggests having one of those periods early in the day, one late in the day, and then one whenever feels right.
Okay, so what do we do during those 5 minutes?
The first step is to look at ordinary objects around you.
Just everyday things.
Yeah. Things like your desk, your coffee cup, a tree outside your window. And as you look at them, acknowledge that you're perceiving them through your connection to God.
So I could look at my coffee cup and say, God is my source. I cannot see this coffee cup apart from him.
Exactly. It's like a little reminder throughout the day that our perception is always connected to something bigger than ourselves.
That's a great idea. What about the other steps?
The second step is to close your eyes and reflect on some specific thoughts.
Okay. What kind of thoughts?
The lesson gives us some examples. You could say to yourself, I see through the eyes of forgiveness. Or, the world can show me myself.
Those are really powerful statements.
They are. It's about intentionally shifting our inner dialogue.
To align with God's perspective.
Yeah. But what if we get distracted during these practices? You know, our mind wanders off, we start thinking about our to-do list. What then?
That's bound to happen.
It definitely does. The lesson says if that happens, just gently bring your focus back to that first step.
Yeah.
Just open your eyes and start looking at those ordinary objects again.
So it's like a gentle reset button.
Exactly. And so how can we take these ideas and weave them into our daily lives?
That's the big question.
It is. Imagine you're dealing with a difficult coworker, someone who really pushes your buttons.
Oh yeah, I know the type.
During those moments, you could silently say to yourself, God is my source. I cannot see you apart from him.
Oh, so instead of focusing on my frustration with them, I'm trying to see them through that connection with God.
Right. And it doesn't mean you condone their behavior, but you're choosing to see them through a different lens.
I like that. It feels less reactive.
The lesson also suggests applying this to strangers you encounter on the street. Just silently acknowledging that you're seeing them through God.
Wow, that would really change how I view the people around me.
And if something upsetting happens during the day, you can use that same phrase. God is my source. I cannot see this situation apart from him.
It's like a mantra to help us shift our perspective.
But what about situations that are bigger than just our individual interactions?
Like what?
Like, let's say someone is grappling with the actions of a political leader, and they feel deeply affected by decisions that negatively impacted their life.
Yeah, that's a tough one. How can this lesson help in a situation like that?
Well, it provides a foundation. By incorporating these principles into our approach, we can respond to even the most challenging situations in a way that aligns with our deepest beliefs.
It's like we're learning to see the world with new eyes.
And that raises an interesting question.
Yeah.
If our perception is rooted in God, does that mean everyone sees the world in the same way?
That's a good question. I mean, we all have different experiences and perspectives.
We do. And that leads us to the next part of this lesson, which delves into the individuality of experience.
I'm really curious to explore that further.
Let's do that. What does A Course in Miracles have to say about how our unique perspectives come into play?
Well, I think it's about recognizing that. I think it's about recognizing that while A Course in Miracles emphasizes that shared connection to God as our source, it also acknowledges that each of us has our own individual journeys and experiences, and those shape our perception.
So it's not about everyone seeing everything identically, but we're all looking through that shared lens of divine connection with our own unique filters, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it like each of us having our own set of lenses, our past experiences, our beliefs, our personality traits, even all those things influence how we see things. But behind all those different lenses is that same source of light.
Okay, I see what you mean. So we're all kind of looking at the same world, but with different filters on. We've been talking a lot about forgiveness and seeing other people through God's eyes. But how does this apply to how we see ourselves?
That's a really important part of this lesson, too. Because recognizing God as our source, it changes how we perceive ourselves. Instead of seeing ourselves through the ego's lens, which is very limited and often self-critical, we start to see our true nature, which is inherently good and whole.
So we're not focusing on all our flaws and mistakes. We're seeing the love and the potential within ourselves.
Exactly. It's recognizing that we are, as the Course says, part of God himself. And this doesn't mean we lose our individuality or our unique personalities.
Right.
It's more about seeing ourselves with compassion and understanding.
It's like extending that same forgiveness and grace that we try to offer others inward toward ourselves.
I love that. That's a wonderful way to put it. And that shift in how we see ourselves, it can be really transformative. It can lead to greater self-acceptance, less self-judgment, and a deeper sense of inner peace.
Because if we're constantly criticizing ourselves, it's pretty hard to offer genuine love and compassion to other people, isn't it?
That's so true. It really highlights how connected our inner world is to how we interact with the world around us. When we cultivate a more loving relationship with ourselves, it naturally spills over into our relationships with everyone else.
This whole lesson feels like a ripple effect, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Seeing God as the source impacts how we see ourselves, which then influences how we see and interact with everyone else.
It's a beautiful cycle. The more we practice seeing through this lens of divine connection, the more peace and understanding spread outwards.
So how do we make this a part of our everyday lives? We talked about those formal practice periods, but how do we maintain that awareness throughout the day when we're not specifically sitting down to do the practice?
That's a great question. One thing that I found really helpful is to just pause throughout the day and ask myself, how would God see this situation? How would God see this person? Or even, how would God see me right now?
So it's about taking a moment to step back and shift our perspective.
Exactly. And another practice is to look for the good in everything and everyone. It doesn't mean we ignore the challenges, but we consciously choose to focus on the positive aspects, even amidst difficulties.
It's like training our minds to look for the light, even in the shadows.
And sometimes it's the simplest things that can remind us of our connection to God.
Like what?
A walk in nature, the beauty of a sunset, the gratitude we feel for a delicious meal. Those little moments can help us tap into that sense of awe and wonder, reminding us that we're part of something much greater than ourselves.
Finding those little sparks of divinity in everyday life.
And the more we cultivate that awareness, the more we realize those sparks are everywhere. You know, this has been an incredible exploration of Lesson 43. It's really challenging us to rethink how we see ourselves, others, and the world around us.
It has. It makes me wonder, how does seeing with God's eyes relate to the concept of miracles?
Oh, that's a really interesting question because when we talk about miracles in A Course in Miracles, we're not talking about supernatural events. We're talking about shifts in perception.
So a miracle isn't about bending the laws of physics or something like that. It's about changing how we see things.
Exactly. The miracle is in transforming our inner world, which then has a ripple effect on our experience of reality.
So when we shift our perception from fear to love, from judgment to forgiveness, from separation to unity, that's when we experience miracles.
I love that. And it makes me realize that by practicing seeing with God's eyes, by cultivating love and forgiveness, we become more open to experiencing miracles and seeing them unfold all around us.
This whole discussion has been so eye-opening. We've talked about how this applies to our individual lives and our relationships with others.
Yeah.
But what about the collective? How does seeing with God's eyes apply to social issues like poverty, injustice, conflict?
That's a really big question. And I think it's a question that gets to the heart of what it means to live a spiritually informed life in a complex world.
Because it's not enough to just focus on our own individual transformation, is it?
No, I don't think so. We have to hold both the individual and the collective in our hearts and in our actions.
So how do we develop a vision that encompasses both personal transformation and social change? It feels like we're being challenged to hold that tension.
We are, and maybe that's where this idea of seeing with God's eyes becomes even more important.
It feels like we're being challenged to hold that tension between the personal and the collective, recognizing they're intertwined. Maybe that's where this idea of seeing with God's eyes becomes truly significant.
Yeah, it's not just about our individual interactions, it's about shifting our entire worldview.
If we truly believe that God is our source and we cannot see apart from him, that must apply to how we perceive larger social issues as well.
It challenges us to look beyond the surface, beyond just the symptoms, and to try to see the underlying causes of things with compassion.
What did it even mean to see poverty, injustice, conflict through God's eyes? What would we see, and how would it change our response?
Those are really good questions, and I think the answers might surprise us. We might start to see how interconnected everything is, how our individual actions contribute to these larger systems.
We might recognize that shared humanity in everyone, no matter their circumstances, their beliefs.
Instead of seeing us and them, we'd start to recognize that we're all part of one human family.
And when we see with that kind of clarity, it changes everything. How we vote, how we spend our money, how we use our voices. It changes how we treat each other, how we engage in conversations, how we approach conflict.
It makes me think of that quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." We really are all connected, and our actions have these ripple effects.
It seems like A Course in Miracles is guiding us towards recognizing that interconnectedness, realizing that our individual well-being is tied to the well-being of everyone else.
It's calling us to move beyond just our own self-interest and embrace a broader vision of love and compassion, one that encompasses all of humanity.
And that vision, that way of seeing, that's the foundation for creating a more just and peaceful world. And it begins with each of us, with our individual choices.
It reminds us that even amidst these overwhelming challenges, even amidst all the suffering and the conflict in the world, we each have the power to make a difference. And when we align our perception with God's vision, with that vision of love and forgiveness and unity, we become agents of change in the world.
Lesson 43 really invites us to see the world anew, to see with the eyes of love and recognize that divine spark within ourselves and within everyone around us. We are not separate, we are connected, and our actions, our choices, really do shape the world we create.
And it's a journey that takes courage, a willingness to constantly question our own assumptions and our own perceptions. But ultimately, I think it leads us back to our true nature, and it empowers us to create a world that reflects that divine essence.
May this lesson inspire you to continue on that journey of transformation, to see with God's eyes, and to make choices that reflect love and unity. Thank you for joining us as we explored Lesson 43 of A Course in Miracles.
I woke up to a miracle today.